All right, I'm back and I have it set up. So we are looking at the 8 stages of development, and I put the link. I was looking at this particular link, and I just the pictures were really great to. All right, here we go. Now I have it set up. So I'm going to be using a slide share by Dr. Evren Baran from the University of Iowa, as the pictures are really demonstrative of the particular stages. So here we go. So let's look at these stages now. Specifically. So stage 1 is again that birth to infancy stage. This is a trust and mistrust. So they basically are saying others are dependable and reliable versus world is an undependent, unpredictable, and possibly dangerous place. So in this stage, it's really important that they go, okay, this world is a good thing. This world is a good place versus I'm not getting my needs filled, and this place is not a great place. So lots of kids in care in like orphanages or in care where they maybe don't have a family unit for the first couple years of their lives. This is an issue. They are dealing with the idea that the world is not a good place and others are not dependable and reliable their entire lives. So you think about movies where it's always like, okay, go back to your childhood. What do you remember about your mother and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, that's actually grounded in Erickson's psychosocial developmental theory, because if you don't actually resolve this issue, you, like I said, you biologically continue on through the stages, but you're kind of hung up there. You can move a little bit, but you need to resolve these issues to fully move into the next stage. Okay, so here's our poor little guy. Oops, poor little guy, not feeling too good about the world. Okay, so object permanence. This is also trusting objects beyond your control. We had a little bit of a look at this in that when kids are playing peekaboo, they actually know that eventually they know that you are actually coming back. And that's a little bit of that object permanence in there. Okay, stage 2, 18 months to about 3 years. This is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This is when they're starting to get a little bit of control of themselves. So they're starting to, be able to go to the bathroom by themselves. They're starting to be able to walk. And if the parent or the caregiver, if there's shame involved with that, like, oh, you're not big enough to walk by yourself, or you're not big enough to go to the bathroom by yourself, it actually really affects how they view themselves and ultimately how they interact with other people. So the child can be like, yeah, I can do this, if they are constantly given situations where they can be autonomous and successful, and or you have it where the child feels shame in wanting to be autonomous. And then again, there's always going to be, when they go to strike out to do something on their own, they're going to have that shame and doubt. God, it's super cool. Can I do things myself, or must I always rely on others? So if you let your kid get into their meal and get messy, even though it's a pain to clean up, these are important things to develop if they become autonomous, or if they start to feel guilty about their desire to be autonomous. Okay. Stage 3, basically 3 to 6. You might see some different years. It's basically the same in there. But this is, again, initiative versus guilt. So they are wanting to make here. Whoa, got all sorts of crazy things going on. Maybe I won't use my pencil on this. They are starting to want to make independent decisions about what they're doing. So, for instance, my girls, when they were growing up, they wanted to dress themselves. And as long as they were, not wearing a bathing suit and then wanting to go outside in the winter, I was cool with it. It's so they took that initiative, and then they enacted upon it. Versus if I had been like, oh no, that's a horrible combination. Polka dots and flowers don't go together. Go back and change. That would then give them a sense of guilt that they had taken that initiative, but then they didn't succeed. So again, you kind of getting the idea that if these are not resolved, it's it stays, it lingers with you because you never quite feel, whenever you take initiative, whenever you kind of put yourself out there in a new situation, you're always going to be ridden with guilt about that. Okay, so yeah, am I good or am I bad? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Whoa, kind of crazy stuff. Okay, 6 to 12 in industry versus inferiority. So at this point, they're starting to gain real adult skills. So they're reading, they're writing, they want to learn, they want to practice, they want to be productive instead of just wanting to play. Play is still a big part of it, but they want to start to be productive. When they're not encouraged to work and learn skills, they start to feel inferior and motivated. So, sometimes when we're like, "Oh, honey, yeah, you don't have to do anything around the house to participate in the household chores." It's a little bit of creating an inferior complex, that you are actually inferior. I don't actually believe that you can do this. And I think this is a really interesting stage, especially for us in the 21st century, where we have really micromanaged our kids and not allowed them to kind of get out there and deal with some real world consequences of, if you don't feed your guinea pig, I mean, you don't let the guinea pig die, but if you don't feed your guinea pig, we get rid of the guinea pig because this animal needs you to be responsible. And I think in this day and age, we've sort of coddled kids in this, and I think we are going to see some issues in personal development based on this stage. Okay, am I successful or am I worthless? Whoa, big questions, big questions. And there obviously is a balance. You don't want to just let your kid, okay, yeah, sure, you're 7, go drive the car and go get groceries. Obviously, you have to be reasonable. But are there things that they can actually do? Can they pick up leaves, and can you give them a time limit to have the leaves picked up? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Adolescence. Yeah, I think we kind of know this one because it's just so prominent. Again, identity versus role confusion. So identity is characterized by integration of personal values with those of society, a clear sense of self in multiple roles, and by making choices about the future. So a healthy identity is where you actually believe in yourself, and role confusion is failure to establish an individual identity separate from the family and having no peer relationships and plans for an occupation. Okay. So this is an interesting one, because this is when, if you've had a teenager in your life, they're really pushing back. They really are pushing back the parents, the family. The peers are so much more important at this stage, and it's actually it's a really healthy thing to be wanting to start to separate from the family, because they're starting to find their own identity separate from the family. So when there is a child parent situation where the parent just will not let the child develop independently, then that ends up being role confusion, because they're wanting to push away from the family unit, but they're being dragged back in. Okay, so that is adolescence. Okay, who am I? Where am where am I going? How about that? I just closed the door there. Okay, so where am I going? Who am I? Again, this real sense of confusion. And we're going to skip over that. Stage 6 is young adulthood, so 20s. So this is intimacy versus isolation. This is when you start to form sort of close relationships, maybe ultimately a partner that will become your partner for life. And if there's a sense of isolation where you cannot create these intimate relationships, there's a sense that, again, it's going to impact how you feel as a young adult. This does not mean that if you are single, that you don't get past this. It's not a like a husband wife, a partner, a marriage situation. It's, are you developing relationships with other people that are that are deep and meaningful. And if you can't at this stage, then again, most people are craving that intimacy, but they're dealing with isolation instead. Okay, so that's young adulthood. So again, the young adults, am I loved and wanted? Shall I share my life with someone or live alone? And I think that's a huge part of young adult life is how do I feel the desire to be in a relationship and to be loved and to be honored, um, but yet if I'm isolated, what is that? What does that look like? Okay. Stage 7, generativity versus stagnation. This is middle adulthood. So this is, again, primary development task is one of contributing to society and helping to guide future generations. So you feel like you're in society, you are contributing, you are having an impact, a little bit of a legacy for the future. When you are stagnant in this phase, it's a dissatisfaction with the relative lack of productivity. So basically, you always thought you would be the CEO of the company by the time you were 45, and now you're 48, and you are still, you're still lower management. Again, that might be part of feeling stagnant, that you have not sort of hit those goals. And that's where sometimes goals have to change and ebb and flow with the situation. But this is the time when we really feel like we are contributing to society. And if we don't, then we feel like we've stagnated. Okay, will I produce something of real value? Absolutely. Okay, and finally, there's only stage 8 on here. This is ego, integrity versus despair. So when you look back on your life, there's a sense of a satisfaction of a life well lived. So you look back, you've developed some wisdom, and you can look back and see the sort of the meaning of life, and that you have actually lived what you thought was a meaningful life. Whereas despair is you didn't actually accomplish much in your life and not much of value, and that it's too late to do anything about it. That is kind of despairish in there. We probably know some people that are 65 and over who are living that. They look back and they're like, actually, I didn't do what I wanted to do, which again is a stage of self-development in there. Okay, and have I lived a full life? Okay, let's go back here. So those are all from this particular slide share. So if you want to go back and look at them, you have the link to do that. Okay, now I want you to think about this. You do not have to share this because I want you to think about your own personal and social development in light of Erikson's, yeah, I spelled it right. No, I didn't. There should not be a C in there. Erikson's 8 stages. So choose one stage, it can be past or a current one, and think about whether or not you fully resolved the crisis of the stage of the development. Okay, so you might want to look back at when I was 2. Did I fulfill that particular stage? Yes, no. How, when I think about that stage, how do I know that I fulfilled it? And consider how the outcomes of these crises affected your psychological well-being and social development. Again, you do not have to share this, but it's interesting to ponder because Erikson states that this is universal, it's invariant, and that we all go through it, and that we need to, on our journey to self-efficacy, need to work through all of these stages. Okay. So what we're going to do in Collaborate is you are going to, as a bit of a, as a bit of a review, you're going to go, why is knowing about Piaget, Case, Vygotsky, and Erikson's theories interesting and are worthwhile to know about as a future teacher? So be ready to discuss that and be ready with Erikson's theories to do the tableau. I think it should be super fun to see what you create, what you pull out of these particular stages, and what you create. Okay, take care, everybody.